dear ladies and gentlemen, students, girls and boys, and our esteemed speaker. As we all are very well aware that we are here in Orange City Literature Festival, and especially at this hour where we are going to talk about exploring feminism and sexuality in patriarchal society, embracing diverse perspectives on basically the perception of the people, right? So me and Anuja, when we had the conversation before coming to this session, we thought that why not to make this session more interactive, to make this session more engaging. So in between, we always appreciate, it should be two ways communication rather than we both communicating, because the topic is so sensational. So before starting, I just want to, start the session with this thing that, as we know, that in Indian culture, proper and due respect has always been given to the ladies, females and women. And rightly quoted also that yatra pujante naryastu तत्र रमन्ते देवता। तो हमें बहुत अच्छे से इसका अर्थ हिंदी में पता है कि जहाँ नारी का सम्मान होता है वहीं देवता का वास होता है, और जहाँ नारी की उपेक्षा की जाती है वहाँ महाभारत होता है। हमने देखा है महाभारत के पीछे का रीजन भी यही है। तो बिफोर फर्दर अड्यू, me and Anuja, we wanted a little bit from your side that what is feminism? What is feminism in this patriarchal society? So yes, audience, what is your opinion before Anuja is going to speak about the same? Yes? Anybody? Anything? Hindi, English, Marathi? Any languages entertain? What is feminism in this patriarchal society?
Equal rights for women.
Equal rights. Okay, ma'am. So what do you mean by equal rights? Equal rights in the sense education right, voting right, dressing right, working hours right. What is equal rights?
Same salary.
Okay, same salary. So same salary is only feminism in this patriarchal society. But rightly said, ma'am. Thank you so much. Anybody else with some other opinion? Yes, sir.
I think feminism is embracing whatever you think, your directions.
Yes.
Freedom to be yourself.
Freedom to express yourself. Okay, rightly said. Another viewpoint? Yes, sir.
It's like you don't have to ask women this question of how you will be doing whatever she wishes.
Perfect.
Like, we don't ask men these questions. So
yes.
Feminism means you don't have to ask women this question.
Yes.
You can be a mom and a CEO.
Yeah, correct. Very rightly said. Anybody else from the audience? Yes.
It's about women's identities, experience, knowledge and strength.
Okay, that's also rightly said. Oh my God, the audience is very interactive. Any other from the backside? No answers from backside? Yes, please. What is feminism? Anything which you feel? Yes, ma'am.
I must be free as a young child and as a growing young woman.
Okay.
To express myself and to have full freedom.
Okay.
I should not be told ये नहीं करना, वो नहीं करना, यहाँ नहीं करना, ऐसा कपड़ा पहनो, ऐसा।
बिल्कुल सही। मैम, इनफैक्ट जो भी आपने कहा उससे मुझे एक छोटा सा इंसिडेंस याद आ रहा है। Like recently I visited one marriage of my colleague. So उसमें मुझे colleague ने बताया कि one of my cousins, she is, her tickets has been done and everything has been done. In fact, she is the manager of XYZ. She is in fact the branch manager of XYZ organization. But her husband asked her not to go. So do you really think in this scenario, still husbands are saying that female and the wife, she is branch manager of XYZ and husband is saying no, you are not allowed to go out for that wedding. Tickets done, everything done. So is this feminism? Is this the society where we are living? So yeah. That's what I now, ma'am, over to you. Want to know your perspective on this evolving landscape. Yes.
It's very interesting that you all brought these points, and I love that there are so many men who are feminists, because it's misunderstood. People think feminism equates feminazi, and it's always some uppity female who's doing all the raving and ranting from the rooftops. So it's nice to know that there are so many, I'm always heartened by it, and I love that men fight along with women for equal rights. I love that, so kudos to all the men who spoke up, and all the women too. And my take on this is as we do live in a patriarchal society today, agreed, but it wasn't always that way. If you look back at history and Indian mythology, which are pet passions of mine, you see that it wasn't always this way, that the goddess was always revered worshipped in India. Women were treated with respect, they were treated as treasures, and it was how it is. So there's a very interesting story in the Mahabharata, which I'm going to share with you now, which shows that point where it started to change. This story is told by Krishna when Draupadi's marriage is being discussed. As you know, she garlanded Arjuna at her Swayamvara. She was under the impression that she's going to marry Arjuna. But she was told, nobody asked her opinion by the way, she was just told that it had been decided she'd be marrying 5 brothers. Draupadi was not allowed to protest, but on her behalf, her father as well as her twin brother protested. They said, how can this happen? It's not correct. Our daughter, the princess of Panchala, she will be shamed. They will say she's a loose woman. If somebody is branded as a loose woman or a whore, she will be mistreated by society. So these are valid concerns raised by her father. And Vedavyasa first says there's a precedent for this, and she's, women have had multiple husbands in the past, and Draupadi it has been fated that she will have 5 husbands. And Krishna tells this very interesting story. He says earlier in India, it was very, very progressive. Women were sexually liberated and they could choose multiple partners inside or outside their marriage. Whatever, they could be single, they could be married, but they were allowed, people had a very practical attitude to sex. And so women did have multiple partners, and there was a rishi named Shvetaketu. And don't forget that name, he was the one who made things super conservative and rigid for women. So Shvetaketu was horrified when his mother, in the presence of himself and his father, took the hand of another man and expressed her interest in lying with him. So Shvetaketu decreed that going forth, a woman's honor is tied to her fidelity, to her chastity. He said women will be worshipped and celebrated only for that, for those qualities. And he also said that women have to bring forth sons. That's their duty. Whether they like it or not, they have to bring forth sons. So Shvetaketu was clearly a guy with pronounced mommy issues. He had that severe Oedipal complex thing, so I'm sure there's a lot of, he was revered as a scholar, but the guy had debilitating mommy issues, and for whatever reason, for some reason the voices we shouldn't listen to at times, we end up listening to these voices. And it was enforced. One man's issue with his mom having multiple partners had long-reaching consequences for women. So Krishna did point it out. He said there's no sin or anything attached to it. People do what they do for practical reasons. So the Mahabharata tells us right there, that these things are cyclical. That's the thing to remember. There's an ebb and flow. One point we get too conservative, we get girls married at 13 and we consider it acceptable, and she should have had at least 5 children by the age of 16. Otherwise she's failed as a woman, a daughter, a wife, a mother. But now we are not like that. Now we have deemed it's criminal. Yes. Underage sexual relations itself we've deemed it as criminal, and it's called statutory rape. So there are laws, and it's going to change again. It will keep changing. So we need to remember that if we are frustrated, if we feel that we are fighting for our rights, we just need to be confident. Ma'am, one of you beautifully put it. You said feminism is not, accepting that women are strong. We are already strong. We need to own that fact. And while society tends to sanction and legitimize male desire, female desire is too often villainized even in this day and age. Okay, we just need to empower ourselves. We don't need anybody doing it for us. I think we can do it. There's precedent for it. Why not?
So rightly said that why we need the permission of men? Why? We are independent. We are having the rights. If we are having the rights of taking other decisions, so why not for our own self? Why only a female is restricted to being a mother, a wife, a daughter-in-law? Right? We have other folks. We have our own identity. So why not to focus on those things? And I very rightly said when we started the discussion that from the ancient era also it has been noticed that woman is always the change maker. Women is always the change maker and will continue to do so. Correctly said. We have when Sindhu is introducing yourself, so it's mentioned that you have written n number of books, and one of your book that is Padmavat, the Burning Queen. So can you bring audience wants to know that. What exactly is Padmavati, the burning queen?
So that character has always fascinated me. Lots of people were saying, you're from Tamil Nadu, you're from South India, how come you're writing about a Rajput queen? And my answer is, I'm an Indian. I identify as Indian first and foremost. If Padmavati is very important to the Rajput, she's important to the rest of India as well. There's no Indian who hasn't heard the story of Padmavati. And I'm a very contrary person. Even as a child, when people are telling you fairy tales, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Cinderella, I'm from a very Angrezi household. Daddy would always buy these Disney princess books and cassettes. So, the happily ever after at the end. Even as a child, I questioned it. It felt very, you hear that, bam, 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 you feel flat. They got married and lived happily ever after. I thought, what? It didn't sound very correct to me. I always questioned what I'm told. I've always been like that. In Padmavati's story, when we were told that story, it's about how a woman chose to burn on the flames rather than be dishonored. And I'm always thinking, I'm scared of fire, by the way. I'm from Sivakasi, the fireworks capital of India, and I'm actually scared of the flames and all, So I don't get too close to bonfires and all. And I'm thinking here you're talking about a woman who was burnt alive. And they are telling us that this is glory, this is honor. Why? Why? Those Rajput kings, let's face it, they had a prickly pride. Okay, and not all the women chose, if you do your research, you realize that not all of them chose to commit Johar. The choice was offered. Alauddin Khalji is painted as a villain by history, and he was a very complicated man. Villains fascinate me, so I try to look at the shades of grey. He actually makes a very fair demand. He says, surrender. Surrender to me, don't make me go to war with you. And to, just to formalize the fact that we are now allies, it was his practice to marry one of the women from that family, Rajput family, either the king's daughter. Usually, if the king is defeated only, he would marry the wife. Okay, so that's how it is. He was a largely reasonable man. And Hamid Chauhan was a contemporary of, by the way, Padmavati's story, there is no historical veracity for it. Whereas if you study the actual historical documents from the period, there were neighboring kingdoms in Jalore, and there was Hamid Chauhan, Prithviraj Chauhan's descendant, and he was also offered the same choice for his daughter. The daughter was willing to marry Alauddin Khalji in the interest of peace, because we women don't want war and bloodshed. It's a man's game to play with their toys and their weapons of mass destruction. Meera Chauhan's daughter was apparently for this union, but he said no daughter of mine will marry an infidel like this and all. And so, he went to war and he was defeated. The men and all these young girls, they were all drugged. There was opium laced with the beverage, fed to them, and they are forced to walk into the flames. They are drugged just to prevent them from screaming and shouting. It has to look decorous. It's basically women burning on the altar of the male ego.
Like what they did to the Satis.
Exactly the same thing. Not all of them wanted to die. Who decides that a woman's life is over just because her husband is gone? So Sati as well as Johar, they are tragedies, and that's how I wanted to tell the story. Even if a woman chooses to enter the flames, the opposite choice here is rape and violation and violence of an unimaginable scale. What kind of choice is this? How is this a choice? Choose between gang rape and Johar.
Like do or die.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring out the tragedy of it, the desperation which forces a woman into these tight corners. There was a movie, a Bruce Lee movie which I really loved, Enter the Dragon. My mom let me watch it because Bruce Lee films were considered acceptable for children. And I've never forgotten the scene where his sister is also a martial artist. And she's surrounded by these yucky jerks. And she looks around, she fights, she's a fighter just like her brother. But she's cornered, she looks around, she has the look of that hunted animal, no way to go. And she just picks up a shard of broken glass and she ends it on her terms. Because the alternative is gang rape. And these are violent men who will do worse to her. So what kind of choice is that? Of course, Bruce Lee avenges her, but what good is revenge when the girl has killed herself and is gone? So suicide, Johar, I just wanted to point out it's so tragic and we really should not glorify it. Which is why I have a huge problem with Sanjay Leela Bansali's film. You have Deepika looking hotter than normal.
Correct.
Does she need to look hotter than she is? She's dressed to the nines of gorgeous clothes and she's entering the flames with a smile on her face. And I'm like,
as if it's nothing. I mean, it's just
nothing to smile.
Nothing to smile.
Just
It's
so tragic.
But does it also not have a romantic angle to it that I don't want to give myself to anyone beside the man I was married
But
to?
even that, no.
Ask the man. Ask the man.
It's like the perpetual thing also. It's romanticized nowadays, but I don't like fasting. I can't fast. If you ask me to fast, I'll stuff my face with chocolate and ice cream. So I'm just saying some women, we've been conditioned to think that we need to make these sacrifices for men. Okay, if you I'm pro-choice by the way. If it's something you want to do, go ahead. But I just don't see why honor should be shoved down the throats of women. That's the only point I'm making. I'm pro-choice. A woman falls in love with a man who raped her. I'm not going to be judgy-fudgy. Okay, I'm like your choice. If you're a consenting adult, your desire is a very messy realm. So I can't pretend to understand why people make the choices they do, but I don't see myself as judge, jury, executioner. I find that very problematic. That's
Why
all.
always giving the options and alternatives? This or this. Why not? It's her own. I mean, it's
And Sanjay Leela Bhansali's film has a young girl being led into the flames, a pregnant woman. Does that unborn child have a choice? The little girl, what does she know? They tell her to dress up wear pretty clothes. Yes. Mass suicide, no, it's not okay. It's not okay, and we should not be okay with it also.
This whole issue of a woman's honor, like deifying a woman as the deity of the, it's patriarchal condition.
Yes, it's correctly.
And Bollywood has its own version of assuming things when they want to portray that
It's like deep things for idiots or something. They simplify it to the point where it's ridiculous. And Sir made an excellent point right now. That's something I wanted to talk about also. This very patriarchal view of seeing everything in terms of black and white. The dichotomy. Either a woman is Madonna or she's the whole.
Yes.
Only short-sighted people. I used to call these guys the ancient incels. Okay, these guys committed to performing penances in the forest. They have very little understanding of women, the female anatomy. If you look at the witch burnings that was horrible during the Spanish Inquisition. If you read up on those stories, it's horrifying. It's clear that these brothers, who from a very young age have been raised in monasteries and convents, from a small age they have to practice celibacy. Which means definitely ancient incels who have zero understanding of the female anatomy and they did not know what the female genitalia looks like. So they used to call it the witch's teat. That means the third nipple. Okay, so they force a woman's legs apart. All women have it, dude. You just don't know it. And they'll say she's a witch. And if you say I'm not a witch, it means you're lying. If you say I am a witch, you're burnt alive. Either way, you're burnt. So again, I'm talking about women being burnt because of such. It's ridiculous if you think about it. It all came down to the fact that they did not understand female anatomy. And they were, they are quick to dismiss you as a witch or a bitch. Today, either way, they could think of a guy thinks of you as a bitch and they said then suddenly rape is okay.
Yeah.
She had it coming. She had it coming. So who are these guys who get to judge? Which is why I'm very much against it.
had it coming.
Seriously?
Yeah. 3-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old.
Because you're dressing provocatively. In Chennai, the south is super conservative. Okay, so I studied in Chennai, which is supposed to be more progressive than the rest of Tamil Nadu. And we were college girls who didn't have to. We were privileged brats. But we didn't. Daddy gives you pocket money, which means you take public transport, either the bus, the train, or the auto. And I remember a friend of mine came to college, and she was crying and in tears. She was wearing jeans and a kurta, which is what most of us wore. And she was molested on the bus by some guy who put his hand inside her top and he actually snapped the bra strap. Okay, we are discussing such a jerk. Okay, and instantly she was surrounded by people. Even women gathered around and they told her, "Where is your dupatta? Why do you come dressed like this?" Then men will misbehave only. And we're talking jeans and a kurta. We're not talking about a mini skirt and a bustier. Not that there's anything wrong with that. You get to decide how you want to dress. Who are these guys who come and say you asked for it because I saw a flash of cleavage? I stared at your chest all day, I waited for the glimpse of cleavage and then I decided you're a whore and I get to misbehave with you. This is a highly problematic thinking and we need to address it.
Yes.
I need to know your take on the inclusion of these virtues in our education system for the children. Like, do you think it's important for them to know about these things, the human equality and feminism, from a early age, so that when they grow up, they have these virtues to respect the women?
See, I don't want to talk about it in terms of virtue and vice, because everything they're teaching boys, sometimes boys and girls, sometimes virtue is used to condone bad behavior. I think what we should focus on is compassion, sensitivity, sensibility, tolerance. These are the things that you should be nice to everybody. A real man would not look at a woman in terms of ladyhood, because anybody who has a friend, a sister, a mother, we are complicated creatures. We will be the first to accept it. I'm ridiculous. Sometimes my husband will ask, do you want ice cream? I'll say no. If he buys only for himself, I'll definitely be irritated. I'll say I'm on a diet. I'll be like, so you think I'm fat? I shouldn't be eating ice cream? I'll fight with him. He'll say, I asked you. In fact, I insisted that you should have some. I know that, but I never said I'm a reasonable person. We women agree. We are contrarian creatures, very hard to live with this.
Right.
Yeah, very annoying. Just like guys are also annoying.
That's too honest.
Yeah. Guys and girls, we are all irritating people at the end of the day. So I'm just saying, this idea about women being held to a higher standard of virtue. If you're a mom, you should care about your child 24/7. Any mother will tell you at some point, you want to just dose your kid with cough syrup and just go to sleep.
I had another question. How I have experienced this, that whenever, when we were in 8th standard, all the girls were separated from us into a different room and they were talked about periods and stuff. So do you think the boys should also know,
Yes.
the whole thing should happen in a
Yes.
single room where boys are
So
also
nowadays, especially sessions are conducted for colleges and for the school students where these things has been taught. This is need of the hour.
Yes, that's what I was asking her. What are the things
Yes.
that it should
Need of
include?
the hour.
Men should know. That's what I'm saying. Men shouldn't see women as some exotic thing. It shouldn't be considered women's problem. I'm saying this again in the conservative south. My mom also wouldn't talk about it. She belongs to her generation. She couldn't talk about certain things. She won't talk about periods with me. So the thing is, what I knew about menstruation was hearsay. My best friend was a doctor's daughter, and she told me, I think it means bleeding thighs. I think that's why they use whisper. And because she's a doctor's daughter, I believed her. And then one day, the first time it happens, you find the blood, and I thought I was dying of cancer.
Yeah.
But fortunately, I was in an all-girls boarding school, so I made it a point to talk to my daughters about it. And another thing I wanted to bring up, this is a personal
Sorry to
story.
interrupt, but not only daughters, but the sons also. You need to talk about it. You need to talk.
I'm just saying it was so bad. We didn't talk to girls itself, let alone guys. So, and there's this other story I wanted to share with you all. My friend's mother, again, Tamilian woman, very conservative. She finds a lump on her breast. And the breasts have been sexualized to the point where you're taught that you should always cover your breast, you should be covered. She was too embarrassed to say a word. She just couldn't talk about it, and then when the pain, got too bad, she finally talks. By then it was stage 4, and my friend was devastated. She was devastated. They did the chemo, they did the surgery, but the doctors kept saying, you should have spoken up sooner, when you discovered that lump first. Her mom dies, and she told me she should have talked to me, Anuja. She should have talked to me. I'm a girl. Why didn't she talk to me? But this embarrassment, it has serious consequences that we don't, we should talk to boys and girls about, we should have sex education where it's normalized, whether it's periods, whether it's, whatever male genitalia, using condoms, practicing safe sex. We should be able to talk about these things, not in a jokey, pornographic way. We should talk about it like civilized adults. We're all adults, and children love it when you talk to them as the way you would, just treat them as people instead of
And they feel more connected rather than, they feel connected. Okay, my mom is sharing with me such kind of things, so they feel more connected. And
Young boys and girls have to be taught about sexual abuse.
very, very important. Because
Because boys will also.
yes, because
Yes,
the 8th and
yes.
9th standard, they also have girlfriend, right? So they need to know about what is right and what is wrong. And ma'am very rightly portrayed by you that a girl who's like just 6 years or maybe 4 years old, like a mother is always so insecure, whether it's that generation, it's historical, or whether it's this era. Still we are so insecure that if we are sending our girl child in the auto, we have that hesitation in our mind कि oh my god, अगर हमने ऑटो वाले को बोल दिया कि भैया तूने ऐसे क्यों बात किया है, तूने ऐसे क्यों किया, तो maybe he will not misuse my child और maybe उसके साथ कुछ गलत हो. Same as with the security guard. आप उसको ऊंची आवाज में बात नहीं कर सकते. Same as with your housekeeping, because you always had that doubt in your mind कि पता नहीं जब तक मेरी बच्ची घर वापस नहीं आ जाए, maybe उसके साथ कुछ गलत ना हो जाए. Washroom जाती है तो you always tell, you know, don't go to the public place, always go with the friends. In school also you tell the same thing. Don't roam around alone. There has to be at least 2 to 3 friends with you. Then only go to washroom. Then only roam around in the play area. Because you know the society has made that element, right? You never know what is. Although we are living in that era where we are talking about the freedom or liberalization or women power and women stronger, but still why that doubt is there in always mother's mind that कि मेरी बच्ची घर ठीक आएगी कि नहीं, वो छोटी सी बच्ची. You never. I mean, it's such a bad scenario in this era.
I have a question. Would you say patriarchy is too deeply embedded in the DNA of our culture to ever be completely eradicated?
See, that's a very valid point, and it is deeply entrenched. You really you have to acknowledge that when you're talking about this subject. But I see we will always deal with this issue. The women's rights versus men's rights. We'll keep on and on arguing about it because there's always a hashtag. Even when Me Too is happening, not all men, which is true enough as far as it goes, but that's not the point of Me Too. It's like she said, even before you know what rape means, I knew the word, I didn't know what it meant, but you're afraid all the same. That's how women grow up. So while patriarchy is deeply entrenched, it's no reason for us to give up. We have to keep talking about it. We have to keep sensitizing people from both genders, because it's not only men who are who perpetuate problematic notions. Lots of women also will attack you. And like ma'am rightly pointed out, men are also victims because you protect your little girls. Like you said, you think about your daughter. Okay, she said, we give boys a lot more freedom, and every predator knows that. Which means little boys also are. I've heard horror stories about little boys who are gang raped. You know, some guy leaves school to go watch a blue film with his friends. It's not like, I'm talking about 80s, now, the 90s and early part of the 2000s. So, back then, not everyone had access to porn. It was a rite of passage for guys to watch blue films either at somebody's house or go somewhere else. And these theaters are not safe places. And I know of a boy who was gang raped and he did not say a word. He did not say a word, he just pretended it didn't happen. And I remember thinking, this is a friend of mine, no adult in our life knows about this. And he never talks about it ever. But so many boys are taught that you have to be a man. Don't cry, don't show pain, don't express yourself. That why men also can cry if they want to. It's sexy. It's not at all, oh, he's a woman. We need to stop that sense. Men are a huge turn on for women.
So gender issue is no more the women issue. It is basically the human issue.
Let me say that a change over the period now, the mentality of mothers, are they started training, and I'm sure you must be agreeing to this, that everything starts from home.
From home.
So are the mothers right now, do you see a change in the way they are bringing up their sons right now, not the daughters? I'm not talking about the daughters.
Definitely, I love how younger boys are so sensitive and sweet. They're very nice. They totally get pads for you if you ask them because you're cramping. I've seen guys being so thoughtful to their wives. Yes, I see. There's nothing. A friend and I were talking recently. It's proper girl talk. We were saying that no guy is harder to resist than a bona fide nice guy. Not a guy who's nice because he's trying to get in your pants, but the sort of guy who will rescue a kitten from a tree for no reason, then because he's a nice guy. Somebody who will help an old lady in a wheelchair. There's nothing hotter than a bona fide nice guy. And I love seeing that there are so many nice guys in the world out there who will help you just because they're nice. I love that. I love seeing that. And I really, really appreciate guys who fight on the side of women when they see that even the Nirbhaya case, it scarred this nation for life. And I was so moved that this guy he did what he could, that he was there for his friend, that both of them were victims of a horrific crime. So there are lots of good guys out there. I'm very, very heartened by that. That's why I'm saying, even though patriarchy is deeply deeply entrenched, and I dare say it will be a problem for generations to come. I think there's hope because on both sides we are allies, you know. Those of us who don't want to let hate prevail, we will always, work to see that justice is served. We believe that we should do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. No ulterior motive, no woke tokenism, no showboating on Twitter and Facebook to look good, while being a jerk in private life. No, I like that I believe there's goodness out there in the world.
Correctly said, and as ma'am pointed out about the porn movies and all. So now the OTT platform has opened the platform for everyone, right? Now, in fact, what you can say, the women-centric shows are more binge-watched, right? Those shows are more binge-watched, and we can name a few like Arya, or maybe She, or maybe Codem, or maybe Four More Shots, or maybe Made in Heaven. So such movies are so popular. Why? Because they're women-centric. Because something wrong happening with them. Because every then and now, in every episode, there is something different happening to them. That's why people are more attracted towards such kind of series.
It's a rare indie film which doesn't have a rape in it.
Huh.
But there's a little difference in the way rape is portrayed. Earlier it was directed at those front benchers, and it was titillating in nature. And I think it was Arya Babar's father, Raj Babar, Insaf Ki Tarzu or something. I remember reading somewhere that guy got so many love letters because the whole rape scene was sexualized and romanticized, and they made it for titillation value. Today, on the other hand, I find that the emphasis is more on violence. They don't do the usual blouse-tearing, ugly routine, which is just going to turn people on. Now the focus is more on the ugliness of it, and it's shot more sensitively. So you don't at any point treat it as something that it's not a turn on. It's just ugly and violent and criminal. So I think the focus has changed, which is a good thing.
Nowadays, this obsession with rape.
Because like I pointed out, not just in films, the question of rape itself, a lot of women will confess to having rape fantasies. There's nothing wrong with that, because a fantasy which you choose to role play with your partner is very different from being forced into. It all comes down to consent. And I think the emphasis on consent is what is being stressed now. In the realm of desire, it will always be messy. We cannot regulate people's desires, we can't judge it. But the important thing is consent and the age of the people involved. So that is definitely, and we need to acknowledge that there's a huge developmental gap between a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old. That is something we have not addressed sufficiently, because she pointed out earlier that lots of kids have a very happening sex life, and we just say innocence of childhood, and we refuse to teach them safe sexual practices, which means it leads to unwanted pregnancies, unsafe, they get scared and they go to some creepy quack. So we need to really be more sex positive also, and we need to stop pretending that the innocence of childhood, that applies for 6-year-old, 5-year-old. Kids get older, they are also very curious about sex, and I'd rather my children spoke to me than they're equally clueless friends, like my friend who told me about bleeding thighs being menstruation. So they need to get information from us. So you need to keep that door open. And you need to be more accepting of people's, without terming people as deviants if they have unconventional sexual preferences.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Do you think patriarchal society is way to a better equal society for us?
We have had matriarchal societies. In Kerala especially, they had a matriarchal society. And since I'm a trained Bharatanatyam dancer, I want to share a little bit about the Dasis, the Dev Dasis. It's a very loaded term because Dasi means slave of God. But they were also called Nitya Sumanglis, which means eternally auspicious. The wife of God will never be a widow. And in ancient times, a widow was considered a cursed woman, right? So these Dasis, I'm telling this because they belong to a matriarchal society. And they were like feudal lords. They had access to education. They could own land. They could choose their sexual partners. They had the ears of kings and prime ministers. So for the longest time, a Dasi was a powerful woman. It was only when the British came that the Dasi fell on hard times, because the British didn't get nuances. They were very puritanical. The Catholic missionaries came along. They saw the white sahibs participating in dance shows with Dasis. So they cracked down and they were labeled prostitutes. When the respectability was taken away from them, there was a lot of scope for exploitation. So I'm just talking about these blurred lines. Even in a matriarchal society, it's not like exploitation never happens. Because even among the Devdasi community, underage girls, I read about cases where underage girls bled to death because they were forced to have sex with, some priest talking or whatever. So it happens. There's always scope for exploitation, whether a woman is in charge or a man is in charge. Power corrupts everybody equally. It doesn't take gender into account.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
Please.
Well, from start session, I was asking, expecting one answer. Feminism. What is exactly feminism is according to moral definition? Because today this definition is using in very long. It's like equality. Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead. We expect it.
I actually need to know the definition, moral definition of feminism. What is this? You are saying someone says equal rights and something like that. That guy at government said, why do you need to ask the question? You know the child, my question might take a minute. You know the child, we ask him, where are we going, where you come? That doesn't mean you are disrespecting. You are taking a care of it. What is the problem in that approach? I need to know this. And as you said, patriarchy. This is ancient tradition. We care for our loved ones. Whether it is a sister, it is a mother. What's wrong with it?
It's a very fair point what you said. There is no consensus about the definition of feminism. That's true. See, we all like to have simple answers. But the problem is every time you ask a question, you won't get a straight answer. You will get many more questions. So you have to patiently explore. Even in the West where the feminist movement, you can argue that it began there very vigorously. They have these labels. There's first wave feminism, second wave, third wave. There's very little agreement, there's very little consensus because as I pointed out, even women's interests are not necessarily aligned. Homemakers will say, see, we don't get the respect of career women. Career women will say, we are busting our humps, you sit at home and you rearrange the linen closet. So, even I told you, we are complicated creatures, but we will argue about it. But feminism is basically doing the right thing by women. We are talking about equal rights. We are not anti-men. We love men, men love women, and that's a beautiful thing always. So we don't hate men, we are not feminazis. The thing you pointed out about asking questions, safety, yes. But again, I answered that. I said if a girl steps out, 10,000 questions are asked. You're going to study at your friend's house. I had a curfew. I had to be back home at 6 o'clock, which means I never went for birthday parties. And I thought I had a very hard life because of that. Whereas for a guy, there are no rules like that. That's what the point was being made. Why do men get more free? Boys get more freedom than girls.
इसके लिए मेरे पास I just want to say a few words in Hindi. Basically very rightly said for this current नारी कि मैं लिखना सीख रही हूँ ताकि मैं अपनी किस्मत खुद लिख सकूँ. मैं लिखना सीख रही हूँ ताकि मैं अपनी किस्मत को खुद लिख सकूँ. मैं हिसाब सीख रही हूँ ताकि मैं अपने अधिकारों का हिसाब रख सकूँ. इतनी सी बात है जो लोगों को समझाना और समझना थोड़ा सा मुश्किल है. Other than that, तो feminism.
You asked a third question, right? You talk about tradition, about protecting your wife, your mother, your daughter, whatever. See, the reason a guy would ask this question because men feel, hey, I'm the good guy here. I'm just looking out for my own. What's wrong with that? But if you're a girl, you will know that in the name of safety, they prevent you from following your dreams. Okay? It's safe choice to get married at 20. Don't go and work because if you work, they'll make you stay up late, and when you come home, you'll get gang raped. They'll keep telling you that. Take the safe choice. Take the safe choice. So we women aren't fans of traditional love and respect.
अभी आपने कुछ देर बाद सोसाइटी का बताया. Society is harsh and something like that. But यही कंसर्न है. इसी कंसर्न के आप क्वेश्चन हो रहे हैं. जैसे कि boys को नहीं होते. See, at end of day, boys are solely called as lone animal. It is called as that, whether you accept it or not. But on other hand, we need to protect them. It is our duty. You said of Mahal and something like that. In one say that it is safe.
Ask the question.
Yeah,
Question is this that you said of ancient traditions. In one say that it is said that treat a girl like a child.
Why?
Okay,
So who is Manu? Who is Manu to say that?
You are protecting.
We will have a guest here to answer that.
No, see, dude, no woman wants a guy, a knight in shining armor. That's fairy tales. We are not looking for guys to protect for me. That's insulting, by the way. And treating women as a precious child to be protected and nurtured, that's how you suffocate a woman. That's how you make her hate you. And that's why crimes of passion happen where women poison their husbands. Because they just can't take it anymore. Okay? So you shouldn't push women to that point where love turns to hatred and rage. So don't bring out that side of women. We can take care of ourselves. Thank you very much. We are the heroes in our own story.
Yes, we are.